All right, guys, welcome back to Ivy Rose Knows. Today, I wanted to talk about crime and fame. At what point do we as a society step back and realize that we are making these criminals famous? I know that there is a peak and an interest in true crime. All right, I'm in the niche myself. We all have an interest. And I really think the interest in true crime comes with the fact that we all are so interested and want to know how a mind thinks. How does somebody's mind get to that point where they can commit such a heinous act, right? That's the interest, is our brains do not function like that. Criminals' brains, however, function differently. And I really believe the interest in crime is really just how do they get to that point that their brains can think like that. Now, with that interest being there and people wanting to solve crimes, and let's be real, it's like, it's a very interesting thing. You're pretty much playing detective in the true crime field, right? In the true crime world. But at what point are we making these criminals famous? At what point do we draw the line? And we are giving them more publicity and attention than they truly deserve, right? And we're going to take Gypsy Rose, for example. Now, Gypsy Rose, she committed a heinous crime. She manipulated a vulnerable man into killing her mother, ultimately, right? Now, that piqued the interest of a lot of people. The story was there. It was the original story was there, right? It was sad. It had emotion. The girl was supposedly being abused and all of that. And so, it was the perfect storm of all of the things playing into what ultimately ended up being a murder. It was really a story about survival, right? The original story that was put out by Gypsy Rose was originally put out as a story of survival. She survived years of abuse, all of this medical abuse. I mean, not just abuse by Dee Dee, right? Abuse by everybody, doctors, medical professionals, all of them. So it's a story about victimhood and survival, the original story. And so it really piqued people's interest. And people really they had something to say about it. They were really vocal on it. And then here comes the one or two people that are like, that just doesn't sound right. How do you premeditate if it was really like a self-defense thing because she was being abused? Well, how do you plan that for 2 years, right? The questions started coming, as they should have. And here we are, how many years later, and a lot of people don't believe the story that Gypsy Rose initially put out. Now, I'm one of those people. I don't believe that the murder that happened to Dee Dee was simply she needed to survive. I don't believe that. Why don't I believe that? Well, because the facts show that. The facts show that she had ample opportunity and ample tools to actually get help throughout the entire thing. There's also things that support the fact that she wasn't abused the way she says she was abused, right? We don't see any proof of physical abuse. We don't see any proof of medical abuse. None of that is really seen. It's really just going off the story of Gypsy Rose. Now, she goes to prison ultimately, right? We all know that. Here's Nick, the poor guy, and I say poor guy, I mean poor guy in the stance that I do believe that he was vulnerable. Okay, he suffers from autism. I do believe that even just emotionally he was vulnerable because of his past abuses or the environment in which he was raised in. And it really, that everything just made him more vulnerable, right? And so she knew he was vulnerable. And so she manipulated him. Now, I think manipulation is horrible. Now, I do believe that he's in the right place. Prison is where they both should be, in my opinion. They both committed a heinous act. They both murdered somebody. Now, so that's why I say poor him, is just the fact what led him to commit the murder was actually very sad. So now they committed this murder. He gets life in prison. Gypsy Rose, well, Gypsy Rose only gets 10 years. She's out in 8, right? Gypsy Rose comes out of prison. And again, the documentaries while she was in prison, the story, her story, not truth, but her story, that she has manipulated, exaggerated, done all of the things to make this a survivor story, right? This story goes out there again, it piques the interest, like what was going through the poor girl's mind when she decided she had to do this. And so there was the interest from the public and media, right? Mainstream media took it, ran with it. Documentaries are out, all of this. Everybody now has an interest in Gypsy Rose. And the fact that she was a survivor, I think a lot of people related to her abuse and they looked at her as some kind of symbol of hope from an abusive situation. However, I don't believe that that was the true story. Now, she goes to prison, she's in prison, and if she knows that this story is piquing public interest. So what does she do? Like everything else in her life, she takes advantage of that. I personally believe that Christy Blanchard, Rod Blanchard, all of them helped her because, again, money talks, bullshit walks, right? And so they formulated this story, over exaggerated it, made lies, made it into a thing. It was her defense, all of it. And so here she is telling this story to anybody who will listen. And again, I'm going to say this again. The original story that she made up and manipulated and exaggerated and all of the things was the perfect story. It had all of the things in it. It had a poor, sick little girl who was abused and she overcame it. She met someone that she loved and her mom just, locked her away and wouldn't let her out and she couldn't be with anybody. She didn't know her age and the medical abuse and all of the worst case scenario ever happened to this girl, right? And then she's free. She was able to survive it and live through it all. And, even though it ended in murder, she was a survivor. She did what she needed to do to get out of it. Now look at her. She has a whole new shot at life. The story is perfect. The problem is it's just a story. So people take what this woman is saying at face value and not really looking into the situation at hand. And that's where it all fell apart. It was such a great story. People just wanted to believe it. Nobody wants to be the person that questions a victim, right? Because what happens to the people that question victims? It makes you look horrible. Like, oh my God, look at everything she endured, everything she suffered. And now you're out here and you're invalidating her trauma and her abuse and all of that. Like, no, things like that should be questioned. We just can't take people at face value. She said it and therefore it must be true, regardless of the fact that we don't have any facts to back it up, right? And so she comes out, and because the public interest was there and everyone wanted to relate to her and they wanted her to be the symbol of their abuse and potential survival and hope and all of the things, Gypsy Rose came out of prison not only as a convicted murderer, but as a reality TV star. Like, only in our society, only here in America, do we make stars out of murderers. I don't understand how that makes sense. It just doesn't make sense. And that to me is a really frightening situation, not just for Gypsy Rose. She's out here, interviews, and how are you speaking on a college campus? You murdered somebody. And for those of you who are going to come at me saying that she didn't actually murder Dee Dee, the murder would not have taken place if it were not for her orchestrating and planning it, and she literally handed the weapon to Nick. So right there, it would not have happened if it weren't for her. So Nick was her weapon, and therefore, in my eyes, she did it just the same, right? But now she's out here. 9 million people follow her on TikTok. Millions of people follow her all over social media because they want what from her? You know what I mean? It's really wild that what I want to see this poor abuse victim, but is she really that? Is she really that? And then you have the people that are questioning the fact that it's all lies, right? Questioning the fact that it ever really happened, like really going down the true crime rabbit hole. And that's giving her even more publicity because, again, it looks like you are victimizing, re-victimizing a victim. So honestly, if you're somebody who doesn't believe in her story and you know the truth, it's really, you're between a rock and a hard place, right? It really puts you in a corner because either you're going to be somebody who is re-victimizing a victim and victim shaming and all of the things, or you're just going to be a follower, bow down and say, yes, whatever, her story's true. But from this crime, she's become famous. Now, all of you can come at me. I've had so many people say, but she's not famous, she's infamous. No. Now, as a reality star, she's famous. Paparazzi doesn't go. They're all, maybe not some more, because I really do feel like her end is coming soon, just because of the amount of questions out there. But how do we allow them to come out of prison as felons and have television shows, have book deals, have speaking engagements, all of the things, guys, all of the things. We literally handed this woman over an opportunity to be famous. That, to me, I don't understand as a society. I don't understand it. Like, people tuned in on TV to watch this murderer, convicted felon, make a mess out of her marriage? Like what? Like make, screw up making eggs? Like, why is the interest on how she lives? Like, is there somebody out there trying to be like Gypsy Rose? Make it make sense to me. But does that open a gateway for other murderers to come out and monetize off the crimes in which they committed? Does that open up a gateway now for all of these people who don't have life sentences to come out and be offered a television deal, a book deal, right? Speaking engagements, all of the things, free stuff, be a influencer on social media, have podcasts. Like, who are you podcasting to? Who are you talking to? I just don't understand. What do we do as a society to stop that? Because we have to take what happened to Gypsy Rose and what brought her from infamy to fame, because it did happen, regardless of what you want to say. It's the truth. She went from being infamous to famous. How do we prevent that in the future? Now, we can't take back the fame and the deals that were already given to her, right? The spotlight, the true crime darling. But how do we prevent that in the future? Now, you got the Son of Sam law that says you can't come and you can't monetize off of your crime. But that's challenged constantly because of constitutional rights and your amendment to free speech and all of that. So what do we do? What do we do as a society to prevent people from monetizing and becoming famous off of taking the life of another person? First of all, we're not even going to get into the whole she should be in prison still, if you ask me. How she even got a deal, and we'll get into that another time. But what do we do as a society to prevent anybody else from becoming famous for taking the life of another? There's got to be something in place. Now, again, I get the Son of Sam and I get how people, go against it, and, but there's got to be something. We cannot allow these criminals, these felons, murderers, pedophile, whatever their crime was, to come out of prison and influence our young, be on television and be in a spotlight that makes people want to be just like them. Like, it's a scary, scary thing. You are putting the spotlight on somebody who did something so evil, so heinous, and saying, here, you deserve the spotlight. Let all of this nation, this entire country watch you and be just like you. Like, do we really want people to want to be like Gypsy Rose? Because even if, and I don't believe it for a second, but even if Gypsy Rose was a victim and survived it, it doesn't take away the fact that she's still a murderer and a convicted felon. So why are we adding all the fluff in there? Like it's some thing to be proud of. And then she comes out and has the book deals, right? Has the reality TV shows and all of this. And she's going to sit here and have podcasts. Like, why are people not condemning her behavior? And they're condoning it. Like, it's okay that she murdered somebody. She was an abuse victim. Does that really condone murder? And let's be real. She had ample opportunity to walk out. She had cell phones, bus passes, money, access to all of the things that could have gotten her away. She made the decision to not choose any of them and to choose murder. So why are we making her star? Why are we making her some public figure that children should look up to? Or somewhere along the line, we as a society need to put a stop to it. Somebody needs to do something and put something in place so this doesn't become a habit, because people are going to look at Gypsy Rose. Look at the fame that she got, the money. Now, granted, you know, the niche, the true crime community goes really hard at her and pretty much blocks her every effort to try and monetize off of it, and good for them, as they should. But at some point, somebody else is going to come out of prison and be released. And they're going to want to be famous as well. And we've seen it before. When do we stop it as a society? What do we do to stop it? And this is really something that needs to be discussed. How do we put a stop to allowing criminals to go from infamy to fame? And here they are, committed ultimately heinous acts, and they're making bank off of their crime while the average human works a 9 to 5 and struggles so they can come home, pay a cable bill, and watch this murderer on television. Make it make sense. Why do we put the spotlight on people who don't deserve it? Because even at the end of the day, even if she was abused and some kind of victim, she's still a murderer. Why would we put a spotlight on that? I just, I don't understand the way of thinking of a lot of people. So I don't know, guys. Hit me up in the comments and tell me what makes people think that they want her to be famous. Like, what makes people think she deserves some kind of spotlight? Because at the end of the day, you could say whatever good thing you want about her. You could say whatever you want about her. It doesn't change the fact that she's a convicted murderer, that she is the reason why her mother is dead, and that an autistic man is in prison for life. None of that changes. You could say whatever you want. You can come at me however you want. It doesn't change the fact. And that, in my opinion, does not deserve any public credit. It does not deserve a book deal. It does not deserve a TV show. It does not deserve the spotlight. It doesn't deserve any of it. It doesn't deserve a spot on social media to be able to influence. None of it. None of it. And I personally think that these companies, okay, YouTube, TikTok, all of these social media apps, all of these companies that are running them behind the scenes really need to do a due diligence for their people. And honestly, take into consideration who you have influencing on your apps. Because ultimately, it's them who allow these criminals to be influencers. So maybe we can start there. Maybe people should start there. Because I can assure you, if people don't want to be influencers anymore, it's money for them in their pocket. I just feel like they should be held accountable as well. for giving a spotlight to people who don't deserve it. Meanwhile, you have people out there that truly deserve it, that are doing great things, that get no recognition because instead our interest is piqued in a murder, and now we feel bad for this chick and want to give her the spotlight. Other people deserve it. Why not give it to them? I don't know, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this whole thing. I mean, I'm just sitting here on a ramble and it had me thinking. And so I thought that I would share it with you. I really do appreciate it, guys. So again, let me know. Am I just seeing things wrong? Or am I making a lot of sense here? And again, it's not just a Gypsy Rose thing. It can go back to so many people. But at what point do we stop it? How do we stop it? And how can we as the public not give them the fame that they definitely do not deserve? So guys, I'm just saying I'm going to take off now. I really do appreciate you watching this. I did have to pre-record this because I do have somewhere to be later. I truly do hope, though, that you enjoyed it. Leave me some comments, and I will be live tomorrow, actually live and not pre-recorded. So again, I really do appreciate it, guys, and I'll talk to you later.